Hello and welcome to this special webinar event. Your unstructured patient data is growing. Can your data protection strategy keep up? Today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Mackenzie Puttasi with Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this conversation today because healthcare organizations experienced 50% more encryption events than the global average in 2023, meaning that the need to protect and get ahead of the ransomware threat actors is paramount for working in healthcare. With an exponential growth in data being collected, it's become a challenge to keep up with, especially when the priority is the patient, not the data. That said, the patient data is incredibly vulnerable, and thus backups and protection of these data sets need to be prioritized. Now, do not fret. Today, we have the experts at Rubrik here to help us face this challenge head on. We'll look at how to observe anomalies and detect encryption events, as well as how to analyze impact quickly and target recovery for the strongest data resilience. This is going to be such a cool conversation, and I cannot wait to get started. So let's zip through the housekeeping and get some things on our way. First, I want to draw your attention to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, and post all your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. And indeed, we do want to hear from you. So find that questions tab now, and let's start out by saying hi, hello, hola, aloha, bonjour, whatever greeting resonates with you today, and give a virtual wave to the community here with you today. You guys have me so excited. I am tongue-tied. So great to see some info, some highs and welcomes coming in. St. Louis, Texas, New York, you're all in the house today. Now, as a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session. Knock on wood, of course, so that does not happen. But don't forget that a quick browser refresh should get rid of the usual tech gremlins. And if not, just shoot a message in the questions tab, and the Actual Tech Media crew will be here to help. And the last thing I want to point out on your audience console is the handouts tab. So nestled in that same window, you can go check out a link to Rubrik's free ebook, Solving the Unstructured Data Challenge. It's going to give you a thorough overview of what you need to know and be the perfect way to follow up on today's conversation. Now, if that ebook wasn't enough of a sweet giveaway, we also have a $250 Amazon gift card as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those are, you can find those full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, with that bit of housekeeping all wrapped up, I told you I'd be short and sweet, and now we're ready to start our webinar. So I am excited to introduce you to Chris Bork. He's a specialist of unstructured data at Rubrik. Chris, I am so excited to have you here, and the Rubrik team is always a joy to listen to, but I'm specifically excited for this topic, how you're going to approach this challenge. And I know you've got a bit of a short demo also here for us, so we can see how Rubrik can be used to face the unstructured data challenge. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to you, Chris. Go ahead and take it away.
Hello, welcome. My name is Chris Bork. I'm the Director for Unstructured Data Solutions at Rubrik. And if you're joining this, you are joining our webinar featuring talking about how we can protect our patient data that's unstructured. And are you really secure? And do you even know if you're protecting this data and how to do it? So I've been at Rubrik for 2.5 years. I've been in unstructured data space for around 7 or 8. I came to Rubrik specifically for the solution we're talking about because I saw the challenges my customers were having with other unstructured data platforms, and the data they thought was just archive is now critical to the business. And so it's seen as a more intense challenge to mitigate a ransomware attack and protect this data. But if we're going to talk specifically about the healthcare space, what we're seeing on the market today is that ransomware is happening more than ever. So over the last year, there's 4,300, almost 4,400 reports of ransomware that happened. It's a 70% year-over-year increase. Specifically on the healthcare vertical, so we had a 46% year-over-year increase. That's happening because the data they have is critical, and the importance that the ransomware gangs are finding is the valuable data lives in healthcare. They know they can get the most money out of this. So we're seeing a growth in ransomware attacks, and then the healthcare ransomware attacks growing even faster. Now let's move on to the next one. So with the rise of ransomware attacks, creates sensitive information. The sensitive data that is in a normal institution pales in comparison to what lives in a healthcare organization. Every image, every scan, every research data, bit of research data, all has sensitive information living in it, whether it's social security numbers, patient names, addresses, billing addresses, billing codes, all of that is valuable and sensitive. So the risk that a healthcare organization has to protect this is greater. And the impact to them and to a ransomware attack is only mounting and only growing more and more. So now, does it live just in like the central administrative office of a healthcare organization? No, it does not. It lives in every different business unit. Previous healthcare organizations that I've worked with have unstructured data that lives in the children's hospital. It lives in the high performance computing environment. It lives in the digital pathology department. It lives in the sleep studies that customers are running on the tests. It runs in the cardiology and the radiology departments. It also runs anywhere else. Any ology you could think of is probably creating data. It's creating critical data that's IP and sensitive to that organization. So we're seeing a lot of siloed environments. Another organization I worked with has 60 plus departments across all their healthcare providers. Now, each provider is running their own siloed IT operation. There's no visibility. There's no security structure. There's no protection across all these different business units. Some of those departments got a grant and they have just a file system living underneath their desk. Now, that is not secure. That is not enterprise ready, and it's not cyber resilient. So what we've known that customers have tried to do is leverage legacy technology. And so legacy technology, we think of like an NDMP or a normal snap and replication, was great. It was great. That solved for the earthquake. It solved for the crater in a data center going down. But what it didn't solve for is what we're seeing, what we talked about in the previous two slides. The rise of ransomware and the risk of leaking out sensitive information across this healthcare organization. Now, we believe that a snap and replication technology is great for that business continuity, but does not solve the cyber resilience. And then anyone that has NDMP probably is having challenges to back up the data at scale. But I have a customer of mine that was leveraging NDMP for about 2 petabytes of unstructured data. Their incremental backup was taking 36 days to complete. That's 35 days of new information, new data, new patient records that were coming into the organization that were not backed up, were not protected. Now that is an exact violation of these hospitals' mandate and charter to protect their clients and patients' information. All the solutions that we saw out there can be complex and then costly to manage, and also not really provide the true goal as being cyber resilient. So we're looking for a new transformational way to solve a problem that most customers don't think they could solve in the first place. And so introducing the product from Rubrik called NAS Cloud Direct. Now the product is from an acquisition, like one of the founders of Isilon, the SyncIQ technology, and the Waffle file system from NetApp. They came together to solve a challenge across billions of files and petabytes of data that's sprawled around the world. How do I move this and how do I protect it? And so what they built was this software technology that could handle mass amounts of data, process it and index it at speeds never seen before, and then also offer the cyber resilience and the recoverability of the data after a ransomware attack. So we take all these, the massive data growth we're seeing, the ability to scan and index it, and the ability to recover it, we see a better solution, a more simplistic solution that can solve enterprise healthcare needs around this critical data. So first, when we look at the technology, what we have is we see any file system or object storage. We don't really care. It's on the protocol basis. So anything that speaks NFS, SMB, or S3 on-prem or in the cloud is a great candidate. So it probably has important information. It's probably unwieldy and large, and it can live in any one of these different file systems or object storage. So what we built was this platform that is just a stateless virtual machine, so no additional hardware, has the ability to scan all these different workloads, index it in our scalable elastic control plane, and then back it up anywhere a customer wants. whether that's keeping it within their four walls into another on-prem target that they have, or it's to their tenant in the cloud, or it's to Rubrik's tenant. And so the real IP is our ability to scan and index billions of files. We have customers that have hundreds of billions of objects and files that we're able to index in just a matter of days. So if we're able to do that, we now have the power to know what changed, what's new, what moved, what was hit with a ransomware attack, and then also what to recover when we need to. So the speed. So the speed is what we look at inside the virtual machine. The stateless virtual machine does three jobs. So the three jobs that we see happening on like NDMP is probably do the same thing. So they're trying to scan the data, then move it, then index it. Well, we do the same thing as well. But we've built our IP. So we built our own SMB and NFS clients so that we optimize the amount of like IOPS we're using when we're scanning all the data. We use about 25% of a normal IOPS, a normal NFS or SMB connection offers. And then once we can do that, we then can build the index and we know what's changed, so immediately start moving that. And now, and not doing all three jobs independently, we do all three in parallel. So as we're scanning the data, we identify a new block, immediately start moving it, it lands, we commit it to our index. And this is all happening like simultaneously. So we don't have to scan the entire file system to know, then index it and then move it. We're doing it all at once. So we drastically reduce the overhead and time it takes to complete a backup. Now I talk about how fast we can scan this data. Now if I look at it, when we scan this data, most file systems that I've seen before run pretty hot. They have a high utilization rate that's happening on a daily basis. So in this speed we have is also the temperance to monitor our latency. So while we're doing these backups, we monitor the latency on the source file system or object storage. So at any point in time, we go above a certain millisecond threshold of latency that our customers deem critical, we throttle down the amount of threads we're using so that we're non-impactful to what's happening on the source side. Now think about this. You have a high performance compute environment that has critical research data that need to be protected. The last thing this like HPC user wants is to slow down the time it takes to read and access this data using for production while the backup's happening. So we eliminate any complexity or any overhead that user is going to see. We don't want the IT teams being like, hey, I'm having slow access to this data. What are you doing? And see it's the backup. This should be happening independently and invisibly compared to what's happening on the production side. Now, finally, we look at the cyber resilience. So Rubrik as a company offers a zero trust data protection. So we built in our MFAs and encryptions and we logically air gap this data. And we've added on to add the next layer across all this important data is the anomaly detection. So happening in line as the data is passing through the VM, we will detect any mass encryption, mass deletion events using our own machine learning models to continually update the type of ransomware or anomalies that we can detect in an environment. Once we detect it, we notify our customers and help you recover not just that bad data, but a clean copy of data that's safe in a safe environment anywhere you want. And then finally, what we see is the power is like across all this sensitive data, like if you have billions of objects and petabytes of data living in different departments, how do you know who has access to this data? Where are the social security numbers living? Who's put it in a normal Windows file share? So what we can offer is identifying in the backups where the sensitive data is, like based on any scan that you want to run, identifying who has access to it, and then how we can lock it down, ensure that's not exposed on the network, not open to other users seeing or exposing or like sharing this sensitive information to this organization. And that's the power that the IT teams have and the security departments have to then identify this and provide more resilience and more lockdown capabilities to protect this information. And so the next thing we usually see is the object level immutability. So immutability is a buzzword, but what we offer to is the true immutability, whether you write this data to an on-prem object storage target or to any tier in the cloud. And so we're really providing that true immutability functionality so we can track the objects that you want to keep immutable and the ones that are kind of just ephemeral. And so all in all, the goal is to provide auditing and compliance capabilities to your organization that you can feel confident going to your leadership saying, yes, this is protected. Yes, we are secured. And yes, we know that we have a true backup that is safe. All right. Talked about the anomaly detection, but here's a double click down into it. And so through this machine learning model that we have, we're able to, one, see the backup deltas, see any anomalies that happen in the environment, or any encryption events. This could be happening on a single file, it could be happening on a larger scale as well too. And so if we're able to do this, we're able to determine the root cause and blast radius of this attack. Is it across one share and one user, or is it across the whole organization? And so if we can understand this, what we're able to offer, then we can then say, nope, we have to lock down, find a sandbox for this data. We can only recover this information. We identified the attack happened on April 15th, that April 13th is our clean point of recovery, that we can then recover this data and minimize the data loss and the downtime that we have in our environment. And the next thing we usually see and we talk about is this sensitive data. The second slide I talked about was sensitive data in the healthcare organization. This is just what we're talking about, where if it's not just one stock scan that we have on credit card numbers or PCI data, it could be any custom type of scan that's important to your organization, whether it's patient records or patient numbers that you like write down that you don't want to be exposed, or it's credit card data, or it's addresses that's important to the healthcare organization. We can identify where that data lives, create an inventory of it, and then help you report and say, this user has access to this data, or this information has been shared to different departments, so that we're not adding additional risk that we're seeing across the organization. So I don't want to be too simple, but the challenge that we have is there's not really any protection on unstructured data. It is critical. There's a lot of data to happen. So what we've solved for here, we have hundreds of petabytes that are under data management today, thousands of customers. And so what we see is the need to do this is the newest thing of like, how do I back up and protect this object or file data? Find a way to do that, understand that I am at risk, and not what I've done in the past is good enough for the future. And the goal is, how can I then take just backing up this data, solve that problem or challenge, and then also add the cyber resilience. And that's where the bundle of the previous like NAS Cloud Direct plus Rubrik comes together to be a true cyber resilient, cyber recovery platform across all your data, especially the petabytes and the billions of files in your unstructured data landscape. So we also see now is, I like to say, is S3 is the new NAS. And so we're seeing object storage platforms from other PACS imaging providers or other DICOM are not running to NAS anymore. They're running to objects, because object storage is almost as performant and cheaper probably than what we see file systems. So in our platform, we offer the same performance and scalability to process and ingest billions of objects and provide that backing up of that data. Because the same way that like Snap and Replicate's not a backup, versioning and replication of buckets is not a backup either. We're not on a separate code base. We're not isolating that data. We're not offering a true backup. Now, this is the newest thing that we're seeing happen across the customers are looking at this data set. And object data is much larger than file data today, and also has critical information. So looking at our customers that we have, we look at any vertical. The biggest verticals that we have are the ones that value their unstructured data, value this data as IP. So healthcare is probably the largest vertical that we're in today. We have many organizations that are heavy reference customers to talk about this, but you can see whether it's sports or state and local government, semiconductor, or even finance, all these type of verticals value their data and value this technology to protect it. So what will be shared later is just the interactive demo for you to take on yourself. Here's the ebook, and also you can really follow through on just your unstructured data, depending on what role you have in your organization. Whether you're a director, C-level, administrator, data scientist, this day class will talk about what's important to you based on your role and how you deal with the data and work with it. So I have a couple minutes left, so I'll kind of go into a demo. If we look at the system, first here, this is the Rubrik landing page. And so you'll see the whole dashboard, the main console. If we go into NAS Cloud Direct, I have it in light version right now for my eyes. But when you walk in here, you won't see any file system. As you can see, it doesn't matter what file system you have. We could have Cumulo, NetApp, Isilon, generic NFS, or even S3. And so the first thing you'll do is you'll go and add a system. You'll then add the system, and you'll pick which file system or object storage it is. what you'll see is we have API integration with certain technologies. If it's not, it's just a Windows file server, doesn't matter. Just pick a generic and it'll still work. Once we add that, we add a fully qualified domain name and the root user access one time and immediately start scanning the data. Once we've scanned it, then you'll see all the shares start to pop up. All the shares will pop up here. And if we look on the right, this circle, that is making sure that we have a protection policy assigned to it. Obviously, you just find the share, you add a policy, and then you click apply, you're off to the races, and you're done. We're going to back up the data at the timeline. If you want to run the policy now, happy to do that. If you want to see the activity or even provide exclusions and not back up a whole share, easily do that as well too. So you can see that the protocol that's being used on this share, we can also see that here's the policy that's protected. That's protecting. We find there's one that's not a problem. We can add one or multiple shares into this policy, not a problem as well. So let's create a policy. So probably the next question is, how do I create a policy? You could have one policy or as many policies as you want. And so to create a policy, it's pretty simple. You choose between backup or archive. If you back up a policy, here you can customize the name of this policy. You'll set how often you want this policy to run. And then you select the destination. And you select your bucket, and then you select the tier of it. As you can see, if we write into Azure, then we can write to any one of these tiers directly. And so let's say this one will write to the hot tier, and we'll keep this backup for 30 days. But you know what? I have a compliance. I have to keep the data for 7 years. So I want to have fast access today and low egress costs, but I also need a copy later. So what I'm also want to do is run a weekly backup to, let's say, AWS, and have this write to Glacier Deep Archive. And so we can keep this for 7 years. So this single policy will take a share it's applied to. We'll run 2 jobs, a daily backup running to Azure, running to the hot tier, keeping those for 30 days. So I can access the data quickly. And for those first 30 days, when I find out most data is recovered in the first 30 days. The second job will be a weekly backup running to AWS, Glacier Deep Archive directly, and keep that for 7 years. So I have my low cost insurance copy data plus my high cost performance of like recovering faster and more and at less cost. And this can happen all in one. If you want to use the APIs, not a problem as well too. Now, two powerful things with this technology is the data discover feature. So what this is, we'll scan all your unstructured data across any file system. You can find, what we find is most unstructured data has that 80-20 rule, where 80% is pretty cold and 20% is active, but no one knows where it is or who has access to it. And so with this tool, you can see between the last access and last modified data, and then you can use this searching capability to search file name, directory path, extension, UID, group SID, and any multiple tags to find where that cold data lives. When you find it, you can drill down very quickly into where that lives. And if you want, you're then able to then archive it or copy the data or create live views and reports. So then what you can do is you can then take it and share this with different departments and BUs so that you are showing where the cold data lives. So you can optimize your storage spend. And the last thing I'll show you is our data search. So since we've built our high performance engine to scan and index this data, we can then search all of it as well too. So we want to, I can use file name, let's do test, and then it'll search and find all the data, all the test shares, the index archives we have. If I want to add more directories, I can keep adding more filters on top of this to drill down into this data set and to really look anywhere and find the backups. And when I want to restore the data, what I can do is I can restore it from right here, but I don't have to restore it to the same place. I can restore it to any file system that has been scanned by us. I can even put it on a system that I haven't scanned before. So in the case of an event or a cyber event, you don't want to restore anything you've scanned before, you can restore it directly in the cloud or to another location that we haven't scanned before. Now, last thing, pretty simple, straightforward, just to see all your reports. You can then filter by the policy you're looking for, by the type of job they're running, whether it's the data discover scan or a copy job or backup. And then you can also look at the location that we've then scanned backed up from. So all this is trying to be very simple and easy to then complete your backups at scale across any platform. Now, bring it all home. I appreciate everyone's time today. I appreciate Um, you taking your time with me. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris. Absolute pleasure having you here today. And as always, just being able to take some of that insight and knowledge from you around this topic is super valuable. I'm sure a bunch of the audience members there are thinking, okay, this is great. This is great. I'm so excited that I'm able to then go take this and hopefully take my unstructured data and do something with it. So that said, if you have not yet checked out the handouts tab, you definitely want to check out the link there to Rubrik's free ebook, Solving the Unstructured Data Challenge. And before we wrap up today, I do have a little wee bit more fun for you all to add to this already awesome webinar. It is time for a prize giveaway. Reminder that you must be present at the live webinar today to win. And today's winner of a $250 Amazon gift card is Dennis Desnidal from Kentucky. Congratulations, Dennis. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar today. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik I want to thank Rubrik for making things possible here today. And especially I want to thank our incredible speaker, Dennis, who's given us so much to think about as well. And I also want to send some high fives and special thank yous to all of you out there in the audience for showing up, for being here. I know it can be difficult to stop and lift our heads up from the day-to-day of it all, and planning how to protect and organize your data is not only looking up and out, it's planning for something you hope doesn't cause you issues, a contingency plan. So it's not always easy to make mental space in your day, and I'm really glad that you did. So hopefully you're feeling lit up and empowered and ready to take this challenge head on. I know I've learned a lot from the session today, and I hope you all have as well. And with that, I am looking forward to seeing you at another webinar again soon. And I wish you an absolutely magical rest of your day. And if you're in the US or Canada, an absolutely magical long weekend. Thanks again. Take care.